Alright, hey guys, welcome back. It's Heather here with Underwater Panther, and I have a couple of really huge announcements. I have been feverishly working on two extremely large books, which I am going to turn into two separate series here, but they do go together. So this is an introduction video to my currently two huge, over 400 pages books each. So this is an introduction video to what those books are about. So this is where psychology, astrology, trauma, alchemy, and the Aquarian age comes together to create the most accurate soul maps you've ever seen. And today is big. So yes, I'm sliding in sideways. I am going to be doing sales. I missed Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but I will definitely have some gifts at the end of this video. Stick through until the end, because I am doing sales not only on these books, but my entire bookstore. I am going to be doing sales with a sales code through December 21st, the winter solstice. Alright, so this is the Aquarian age, where the Aquarian age comes together to create the most accurate soul maps you've ever seen. And today is big, because I'm officially opening the doors to two major books that I've been working on for months, but honestly years. I have finally finished my Scorpio or ENFP book. I started framing these books 8 years ago. So I have finished a ginormous, huge ego book as of tonight. I uploaded the book tonight on my website. It is over 500 pages, and it certainly is the most in-depth book I have ever written in my entire life. And so I've been writing books for many years, and I certainly, although I framed them 8 years ago, I have learned a lot since then, so I've really truly outdone myself. Alright, so these two books completely redefine how we understand polarity, power, purpose, and the future of human consciousness. So I do have two flagship releases. I am excited, I am exhausted. I have been working on these for hours and hours and hours the last couple of weeks, and it is extremely cold in here. I have my heater going. We got hit with, I don't know, 10 inches of snow, so you probably can see my breath. It's freezing in here. Alright, so let's get through this video. So firstly, I will be going over the Scorpio or ENFP archetype, an in-depth astro-psychological analysis book. It is over 500 pages. And yes, I'll be making video series throughout 2026 on my Scorpio book, as well as my Aquarian age, the Aquarian age book. So this certainly is the deepest personal book I have written to date. So if you are a Scorpio, an ENFP, someone you love someone that is a Scorpio or ENFP, or you have many placements in your birth chart, especially Pluto in Scorpio, this book is the master key to your psyche. This isn't normal astrology. This isn't normal MBTI. This is the fusion of cognitive functions, planets, houses, mythology, masculine and feminine energetics, attachment wounds, and trauma responses, all mapped out onto the Scorpio or ENFP psyche. So inside, I take you through the Scorpio soul temple, why Scorpios awaken through death, rebirth, shadow, and truth. The ENFP cognitive system, Y, extroverted intuition hero, introverted feeling parent, extroverted thinking child, and introverted sensing inferior, creates one of the most powerful but misunderstood archetypes on Earth. I will also be breaking down Mars, Pluto, and the Death card, your masculine and feminine initiators, your karmic patterns, and your destiny path. And deep dives into each planet, cognitive functions, and cognitive roles within the ego. So if you, well, eventually I'm going to sell these as a hard picture type of thing. I have key cards here. It really helps me visualize. This is so much information. It's absolutely insane. I tie in so many different systems together. It truly, there's no one else on this planet that is doing this. It is like Carl Jung level, C.S. Joseph level, Giordano, Bruno level. I mean, this is like, you're not going to find this information anywhere else. And what helps me is these key cards. You can purchase the ebook to get this key card, or you can go on to my, I'll link all the description, the links in the description below. I have stickers right now. You can buy a sticker for a couple of dollars if you're interested in this key card. So it's just a visual representation of how the ego is broken down into 4 sections, astrologically and psychologically. So you have the ruling planet, you have Mars, co-ruler Pluto, and then you have extroverted intuition and the hero function. I break all of this down in this 500-page book. So I'm not going to go through all of that here. I will break that down here in a little bit, but just an FYI. I break down the cognitive function pathways, how NE, FI, TE, and SI evolve across all 12 personalities, and how to repair distortions there. So I am going to be launching these as separate books in time as I go through the series from now to 2026. So the extroverted intuition, introverted feeling, extroverted thinking, and introverted sensing, you can break that down through the cognitive role, hero, parent, child, and inferior functions. All 12 personalities play out differently with these cognitive functions. So I will make those as their own separate book if you're interested in the cognitive functions very deeply. I seriously don't know anyone else doing this. I've been working on this for years and years and years. So hopefully I can help someone out there. I wanted this years ago. And so, yeah, if you're interested, that's a big thing. All right, so the full masculine and feminine architecture for Scorpio, your king and queen archetypes, your attachment wiring, and your shadow integration path. The Scorpion, Serpent, Phoenix, Eagle, and Dove evolution path, your entire soul development timeline in one place. So I am going to, that was just a little introduction. I'm actually going to go into the origin story of this book, the Scorpio or ENFP Master Ego book. I want to go through the origin, and then I will break down all the chapters with very brief descriptions of each chapter. This might turn out to be a longer video than I had planned, but if you are interested in this book, go into the description below. I have uploaded a free preview. I cannot remember, let me see exactly how many pages that turned out to be. It's probably like 20 pages. I've got a ton of things open here. Scorpio Master Book Preview. So I have a free preview with 45 pages. for free if you go to my PayHip, go to the Scorpio book and click on preview, and you can download that to your phone. That will give you the summary of the chapters, what each chapter is about. It will go into why I mix psychology with astrology, my background, how I came to these conclusions, the evolution of cognitive functions, so starting with Carl Jung, Myers and Briggs, kind of going through the evolution, with David Kersey, Linda Behrens, John Beebe, C.S. Joseph. I break down all of that. I go into depth with Carl Jung as well, because he certainly was a pioneer. There were others before him, but I do break that down, I believe, somewhere else throughout that book. I'm not sure. I don't think I did, actually. But yeah, it's just so much. I just felt like putting Carl Jung in there, giving credit where credit is due. Let's see, my purpose behind, there's disclaimers. I'm not going to go through that here, but you can download this for free. How to use the book, there's a couple pages of how you can use the book. It is massive. It is massive, 500 pages. I go through the 7 Hermetic principles. These are very, very key, overarching way to live your life. The ancient laws behind reality. So there are multiple pages, probably 10 pages, breaking down the 7 Hermetic principles and how you can apply that specifically to the Scorpio personality type. So it is a lot. I wanted to give you that out for free. Emotional processing styles of Scorpio, that is also in the free preview. So it is a lot. I wanted to go through the origin story of this book. So for as long as I can remember, I felt life happening on multiple layers at once. People spoke one thing, their energy said another, and their patterns revealed the real truth. I was the child who felt the undercurrents adults tried to hide. I was the teenager who asked questions no one could answer. Pluto-Scorpio generation here. I became the adult who could read people's motives faster than they understood themselves. Not because I was trying, but because Scorpio is a combination that sees beneath the surface by default. So this isn't just for Scorpio egos. This is an ego book specifically, actually. The ego is a massive, huge thing to break down and understand. So I am working on ego books right now. This is very, very foundational. I do take the 4 sides of the mind into consideration, as C.S. Joseph does, but I also have an astrological lens through which I view all of these systems through. And so I will be making volume 2 books after I finish my 12 personality books, and that will get even deeper into the unconscious and super ego of each personality type. But I seriously recommend you starting at the ego first. That is #1 foundation. But if you do have a lot of Scorpio energy within you, and your Mercury and your Mars and your Pluto, whatever the case may be, you will learn a hell of a lot about yourself in this as well. So yes, seeing beneath the surface by default is a blessing and a curse. The X-ray soul vision. Growing up, I watched people collapse into their wounds, their patterns, their unprocessed shadows. I watched relationships destroy themselves long before the people in them knew why. I watched the brightest, kindest, and most well-intentioned people sabotage everything they loved. Over time, the same question haunted me. Why do people behave the way they do, even when it hurts? I searched psychology, I searched astrology, I searched the trauma theory, temperament theory, MBTI, Jung, the planets, generational patterns, attachment science, even esoteric teachings and ancient systems. I have studied Eastern and Western philosophies, Hermetic principles, you name it. Nothing explained the whole picture until one day, like with the master framework, the pattern cracked open. The zodiac showed the archetype, Jung showed the function, the 4 sides of the mind showed the developmental layers, cognitive function showed the energetic mechanics, trauma showed the distortion, polarity showed the relational consequences, so I do break down masculine and feminine polarities extremely deeply. The ego showed the story the person believes about themselves, and suddenly everything made sense. Scorpio was the key. ENFP was the key. Ego psychology was the key, and the integration between all of them was the map. I realized the world didn't need another shallow astrology book or MBTI stereotype list. People need a way to understand why they behave the way they do, how their psyche was actually built, where their wounds influence their choices, what their ego is protecting, who they become, and where or when they integrate, how to stop repeating karmic patterns, how to evolve without losing themselves, how to use Scorpio energy without burning their own life down. So this book was born not as a personality profile, not as a compatibility guide, not as a simple breakdown of traits, but as a Scorpio ENFP ego map, a psychological, astrological, cognitive, and energetic blueprint that explains how your ego formed, how your function stack drives your behavior, how your wounds distort your gifts, how your temperament shapes your life path, how your masculine and feminine polarity expresses, extremely important, how your shadow pulls you out of your destiny, and how to integrate it all consciously. Most of us go through life reacting, repeating, projecting, surviving, collapsing, and rebuilding. Scorpio shows the descent. The ENFP shows the fire. The ego shows the story. This book shows how to rewrite it. And unlike the master framework, I will be talking about that book next. This book has one mission: decoding the ego, your conscious identity, your visible cognition, your behavioral patterns, your strengths and weaknesses, your autopilot personality, your primary fire, water, air, earth expression, unconscious patterning, opposites and tension between functions, psychic energy flow, introversion versus extroversion, psychological compensation, and the developmental self. So I don't go into the subconscious here. The inferior cognitive function, I do at the very end of this book get into the subconscious just a little bit. When I deep dive, it is insane. It is extreme. It takes me a hell of a lot of hours, a hell of a lot of time to break everything down. But at the end of this book, I do get into the subconscious due to the moon and fall in Scorpio's ego, astrologically, and then psychologically there's SI, or introverted sensing inferior. And the inferior cognitive function can either, you can transition through that gateway in a conscious way, which then you will get into your subconscious, or in an unconscious way, and then you will start getting into your demon function. So the demon is in the unconscious, in which I do touch on at the end of this book. But specifically, this is more about the ego itself through the hero, parent, child, and inferior, and many different cycles that a Scorpio goes through in their life. So this book is your ego key, the first step in integrating your entire psychological architecture. This is where your evolution begins. This is where the pattern finally reveals itself. This is your story now made conscious. All right, so I'm gonna go through a chapter by chapter summary. And I'm telling you right now, I think there are like 70, how many chapters are in here? There are over 75 chapters, so I do lump some of them in. Let me just go over a few. I'm just gonna go ahead and do this because it's important. All right, so part 1, foundations of the system, where modern psychology, ancient symbolism, and cognitive science merge into one coherent identity map. And if you want to bring this up on your phone, go to my website, click on the Scorpio book, click on preview, and it will pop up on your phone. You can read along with me or skip through this part and read it yourself. So chapter 1 is mixing psychology with astrology, a groundbreaking explanation of how astrology and cognitive functions describe the same inner architecture through different languages. This chapter shows why Scorpio or ENFPs cannot be understood through either system alone, but fits perfectly when the two are combined. Chapter 2, the evolution of cognitive functions, a clear timeline of how function theory transformed from Jung to MBTI to the modern function axis model, and why this new structure finally explains the Scorpio or ENFP psyche accurately. Chapter 3, the completion of the model, 2015 to present, how the contemporary model uncovers the hidden mechanisms behind identity, shadow work, emotional patterns, and developmental maturity, especially for intuitive feelers like ENFPs. Chapter 4, where Jung's system actually comes from, a revelation chapter. It traces Jung's inspirations back to mythology, alchemy, archetypes, and Hermeticism, believe it or not. The same spiritual frameworks that govern Scorpio's psychology. Chapter 5, storytelling and archetypal function, shows how myths, symbols, heroes, villains, and transformation stories mirror the Scorpio psyche. Scorpio lives through narrative stages, death, rebirth, and integration, and this is why storytelling is essential to understanding them. Chapter 6, the fundamental use of astrology, explains astrology as a psychological interface rather than fortune telling. I do not get into that. I get into foundational archetypes. So the planets and cognitive functions, signs and archetypes, houses and lived experience, aspect, and psychic friction. This is the chapter that sets the tone for the entire system. Chapter 7, my purpose behind the drive, my statement of mission, why this book exists, who it's for, etc., etc. Chapter 8, there are in-depth disclaimers, as we all have to have disclaimers. A reminder that personality is fluid, developmental, and contextual. This book is a map, not a box. Chapter 9, how to use this book, teaches you how to move between ego map, cognitive roles, temples, shadow integrations, planetary archetypes, and a read slowly and cyclically invitation. Chapter 10, the 7 Hermetic Principles, a deep dive into the metaphysical architecture underlying reality, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause, effect, mentalism, correspondence, and gender, and how Scorpio embodies these more than any other sign. Chapter 11, applying Hermetic laws in daily life, and you will see that in your preview for free. For relationships, healing, boundaries, identity work, transformation, emotional regulation, and shadow navigation, especially important for Scorpios or ENFPs. Chapter 12, emotional processing styles of the Scorpio or ENFP, the 4-stage emotional alchemy cycle, We have absorption, interpretation, fusion or withdrawal, rebirth or rupture. This chapter gives readers the master key to their emotional world, and that is also in your preview. Chapter 13, personality type dynamics, how your cognitive stack forms the scaffolding of your archetype, and how the sign modifies the type. Chapter 14, the Astro-Psychology report theory. So chapter 14, I get into my entire theory. Introduces the integrated system of astrology, MBTI, planetary cognition. This is the bridge chapter connecting the rest of the book. Chapter 15, mind domains and the 8 functions, explains the 4 temples, soul, heart, mind, and body, per C.S. Joseph, and how each function lives within one domain. This is the beginning of your full psychological architecture. Part 2, the Scorpio ego and identity architecture. An immersive breakdown of how Scorpio identity is formed, protected, weaponized, and transformed. Chapter 16 is the ego sun sign briefing, clarifies that your sun sign governs identity, purpose, and the seat of consciousness, not personality alone. So the ego in my mind, in my theory, in my studies, is your sun sign astrologically. And I also tie in Mercury with the ego. I am going to write an entire other series. I am working on that now. It is almost complete. I will be launching another book on it, going more in depth with how I combine the ego, subconscious, unconscious, and superego with astrology. You have, you know, higher octaves and lower octaves of each planet, so you will start to find that you have different planets in different parts of your you know, ego, subconscious, unconscious, or superego, and that breaks down into different times of your life. You work on your ego, you know, for example, the hero is like, I think 1 through 12 years old. And then your inferior, you start tapping into inferior integration, 35 years old and above. So don't cover that here, but that is something to notate. This is a very, very long, lifelong journey of integration. All right, so where was I? Chapter 18, it goes more in depth than what I put here in this book, but this is ego only, so eventually I will have volume 2s just as big for each personality. All right, chapter 17 or 18, Scorpio ego in astro-psychological terms. So chapter 18, I break everything down in one page so you can see. It's a very, very nice key card style. Breaking down the Scorpio psyche. Chapter 19, chapter 18, it is kind of long. A deep breakdown of the Scorpio psyche, loyalty, secrecy, truth, hunting, intensity, moral instinct, sexual depth, and transformation-driven living. Chapter 19, 8th house representation. I break down the 8th house more in depth than I've ever seen anywhere else online, even Eastern astrologers, Western astrologers, you name it. I've never seen the 8th house broken down like this before. I will be doing a humongous video series on this. It's truly phenomenal. So the 8th house, power, intimacy, inheritance, trauma, psychology, secrets, death, sexuality, and merging, explains why these themes shape your entire life. Chapter 20, Scorpio as water, is a very long chapter as well. Shows how water, emotion, memory, intuition, depth, bonding, desire, and shadow. how Scorpio embodies those things. Chapter 21, fixed modality, how fixed makes you consistent, loyal, obsessive, stubborn, protective, and deeply intentional. I do break down the fixed modality according to astrology and psychology within each of the cognitive functions. You are not going to find this anywhere else, I can absolutely promise you. And I will make a $50 bet actually right now. I've never lost a $50 bet in my entire life. And if you find another book, another person that is breaking this down like I am, I will bet you $50. And if you can prove it, I will give you $50. All right, chapter 22, Scorpio season, explores the symbolic meaning of mid-fall, decomposition, truth exposure, shadow illumination, and the thinning of the veil. Chapter 23, masculine and feminine energies within us. This is a huge portion. Explains inner polarity and why Scorpio carries the blueprint for both the destroyer and the healer. I break down feminine and masculine foundationally. We all have feminine and masculine energies within us. I break down what those are foundationally, what they represent, as well as how your own cognitive functions and planets play out in both men and women in depth. Chapter 24, the Scorpio King and Queen archetypes, two of the most psychologically potent archetypes, their virtues, vices, temptations, gifts, and paths to transformation. Chapter 25, the Taurus-Scorpio axis, the backbone of your entire psychology, explores the tension between pleasure versus depth, body versus soul, simplicity versus intensity, stability versus transformation. Chapter 26, what pragmatic does to an ENFP. Yes, they are affiliative by nature, but if you get in more deeply, you start to realize that Scorpio is the odd man out of the water signs, astrologically speaking, or the idealist, psychologically speaking. Pragmatic is a huge extroverted thinking child ordeal. YTE, or extroverted thinking dominant types, trigger you and how it exposes your developmental path. Chapter 27, the death card as an archetypal initiator, why endings, collapses, initiations, betrayals, and rebirth cycles are your spiritual curriculum. Part 3, cognitive roles, planets, and function mastery, a fusion of MBTI, planetary symbolism, instinct, shadow, and development. Each chapter in this section corresponds to a function, a planetary archetype, and a psychological lesson. Chapter 28, that is when I get into the masculine and feminine energetics of the functions. Shows how each function has a yin and yang expression, harmony, distortion, projection, and integration. 29, the Scorpio or ENFP man, his inner world, emotional processes, sexual patterns, wounds, intuition, volatility, and deepest gifts. Chapter 30, the Scorpio or ENFP woman, her emotional signature, shadow patterns, attachment style, magnetism, protective nature, and transformation arc. Chapter 31, why water sign men appear feminine, energetics, receptivity, intuition, and the psychology of perception, especially the perceptive functions, which is intuition and sensing, cognitive functions, why they are more feminine, and why a male Scorpio can seem feminine. Chapter 33, temperament theory, a structural breakdown of how you relate to the world through rhythm, instinct, and inner drive. Temperamentally speaking, you are abstract, affiliative, and interest-based. I break down all of that. Interaction style, informative, initiating, and movement. So that is the chapter I break down all of the temperamental psychological aspects. Chapter 34, the 4 elemental temperaments. So I break down all of the temperaments briefly. Chapter 35, interaction style, I just said that. Chapter 36, I go through Scorpio in a nutshell. So I recap all of the prior chapters as short as I can. It's a nutshell, but it is a couple of pages. So it's an archetypal distillation, the quick key to your entire psychology. Chapter 37, I start getting into the soul temple and your virtue and vices, where your morality, integrity, truth, drive, and shadow impulses live. So that starts getting into the wrath, the wrath vice of a Scorpio. Chapter 38, I have healthy versus unhealthy, a diagnostic map showing your polarity, healed versus wounded, integrated versus fragmented. Chapter 39 is the Scorpio cognitive and planetary master key, your complete identity architecture, one of the most complex and powerful in the zodiac. What home means. So then I start chapters 40 through 75. I start getting into the planet function mastery series. It is an enormous section that includes this is where I start breaking down what Mars and Pluto. So Scorpio is ruled by Mars co-Pluto. Mars represents desire, sex, anger, and boundaries. Pluto, shadow, power, trauma, and rebirth. Then you have Uranus exalted. Uranus represents awakening, shocks, liberation. In left field, we have Venus, love, bonding, attraction, Earth, stability, and embodiment. And then we have the moon in fall, attachment, safety, and emotional patterns. Each of these planets has an awakening, there's three, I can't even think, there's three integrations of each planet. So it's chapters 40 through 75, huge, enormous. I break down each planet. I also break down each cognitive function role, the hero, parent, child, inferior, and I also do get into the demon function. So all of this is broken down, including major expansions on what each of the cognitive functions, so that is NE, FI, TE, and SI. Every single huge part of the ego I break down in absolute depth in this book. You are not going to find this anywhere else. I am doing a sale, 33% off, because I have launched these huge books and because it is the end of 2025. This is kind of like my Black Friday, sale here, 33% off. I will give you the code at the end for that. All of my books are on sale. You can bundle books together, and also all of my clothing, stickers, bags, tote bags are all on sale with the same sale code, 33% off until December 21st. So definitely grab that while you can. Part 5, this is the last section here. I'm getting into attachment, shadow, and rebirth. So part 5 is where I'm getting into the moon and fall, the inferior introverted sensing within the Scorpio. This is the most triggering, unconscious part of yourself. You don't start working on this until you're 35. It will cause you the most problems. It deals with Scorpio attachment styles, fearful avoidant patterns, bonding, fusion, withdrawal, trust ruptures, and attachment healing. This certainly goes into Oh, I get into that. Okay, so the core need of the Scorpio moon and fall for both men and women, your deepest emotional requirement, and the key to relationship stability with yourself and others, especially romantically. The introverted sensing inferior shadow, why routine, memory, fear, and the body are your most vulnerable areas. Parent wounds and attachment trauma, I break that down in depth for men and women. The map of healing from childhood wounds goes deeply into father wounds, mother wounds, and how to integrate those within yourself. The final chapter is about the demon function in love with SE rage, your breaking point, your destructive pattern, and how to transmute it into empowerment. So that is the entire summary, chapter by chapter breakdown. This book is dedicated to my father, the Scorpio who taught me what real work is. I actually forwarded this dedication to my father, and I probably borderline made him cry. I'm going to read it very quickly, and then I'm going to move on to the other book. So, to my father, this book is dedicated to my father, the Scorpio who taught me what real work is. The man who rose before the sun, hands stained with earth, quiet strength forged in seasons, storms, and harvest cycles. He is a farmer. Grew up on a farm. From you, I inherited the spine that doesn't bend, the discipline to finish what I start, the fire to keep going even when the world feels heavy. You showed me that devotion is a language, and that love, real love, is often spoken through action rather than words. Your resilience became the ground I grew out of. Your work ethic became the rhythm of my life. Your energy became the model of what high Scorpio truly is. Loyal, steady, determined, and unbreakable. This book carries your imprint. My work ethic certainly comes from my father. You are the healed Scorpio, the one who protects, provides, and perseveres. And to the Scorpio who came later, you know who you are if you are watching this. The one who showed me the other side of the sign, the shadow, the obsession, the intensity, the breaking, the underworld initiation. Through you, I learned boundaries, truth, and the necessity of rising from my own ashes. The lesson in truth, polarity, and release. One Scorpio showed me stability. The other showed me transformation. Both were necessary. This book is dedicated to the light and shadow of the Scorpio archetype, to the men who shaped my evolution, and to the fire that forged my becoming. So yes, my father has certainly set the bar extremely high in the male side of this world, in my own world. He certainly set the bar extremely high. And it seems to be, I've had 2 relationships in the last decade plus. The first relationship, I ended up writing a Gemini book, and now here I find myself writing a 500-page Scorpio book. It is a hell of a thing to, when you are in pain, to turn that pain into creativity and to turn that into understanding and helping yourself and others. That is what I do when I am in some serious, deep pain. I tend to write enormous books. So that is my dedication and origin story.